The Odyssey had a record 87 million second weekend at the box office and is now past the 600 million global mark. And, you know, the Odyssey having this kind of incredible second weekend, in my opinion, is proof that Hollywood has been misreading audiences for a long time. Every time they keep saying, well, people don't go to the theaters anymore. Every time one of their so-called blockbusters flop, like Supergirl or He-Man, you hear that excuse. Nobody goes to the theaters anymore. But people didn't stop loving the theaters. They stopped showing up for movies that didn't feel essential. Look no further than the recent Star Wars Mandalorian and Grogu film. I mean, you talk about a movie that literally felt like it belonged on Disney Plus. And yet they still wonder why is everybody avoiding the theaters? And the thing about The Odyssey, whether you love the movie or you hate the film, Chris Nolan and Universal turned it into an event, a must-see thing. Not only did they turn it into an event, they made it the biggest event of the year, besides maybe Spider-Man and the Avengers. And as I said, whether you kind of love or you hate this film, you're talking about it. You care, you know, whether it's the discourse going online or even Elon Musk jumping in to kind of give his opinion. People care. And a lot of the issues with a lot of these other Hollywood movies we've been seeing this recently is that they come out and they bomb, they flop, and you don't hear really a peep, right? You know, Supergirl came out, and yeah, you may have had some discourse for a week or two, but for the general public, they moved on quickly. They didn't make that into an event that you care about or that you want to talk about or that you want to discuss. Whereas with The Odyssey, they have managed to do that here. And I think that that's reflecting in the massive numbers we're seeing in the second week. You know, people are saying, oh, I got to check this out. I got to see what all the fuss is about. I've been hearing this about it from this YouTube influencer or this social media personality. I want to go see it for myself to see if it really is as good or as bad as they're all saying. So to me, it's not really all that surprising that it's doing as well as it's been doing. And we also got to take a look at Chris Nolan himself. I mean, he has built this reputation over the years where people are willing to go, when Chris Nolan puts his name on something, I'm going to get something worth seeing in IMAX. Irrespective of what the plot or the story is, from a technical standpoint, I know that when I go into a Chris Nolan movie, this is a guy that's going to go all out when it comes to IMAX, when it comes to cinematography, when it comes to sound. I know I'm not wasting my money. If I go to Oppenheimer or, The Odyssey or a Chris Nolan Batman movie, Chris Nolan is going to make sure that IMAX experience is fantastic. And this is really no different. So it is really not even a shocker to me that, you have so many people, rushing specifically in this second week after seeing it in the first week to the IMAX theaters. And it's still going to have those IMAX theaters even when Spider-Man comes out. So I wouldn't be surprised if, we get into the next weekend and it doesn't have much of a drop. But also, as I said, Chris Nolan himself has kind of become probably the biggest celebrity in this movie, weirdly enough, right? Because you have all of these big stars like Matt Damon and Zendaya and Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland, but the biggest name is the director behind the cameras, Chris Nolan himself. But again, this all comes back to my main point, which is Hollywood shouldn't be asking why aren't people going to the movie theaters anymore? Because Chris Nolan shows that it can be done. You can get butts in seat. You can get people to go to the theaters to watch a 3,000-year-old story, right? A story that's so well known, probably one of the most well-known human stories in history, but yet he's managed to get a big crowd to go to it. Well, if Chris Nolan can do that, then there shouldn't be an excuse when He-Man or, Supergirl or Star Wars or whatever, franchise Hollywood kind of puts out there. There shouldn't even be a legitimate excuse for why they can't do the same, other than being lazy in the case of Disney. Obviously we saw with Moana. But as I said, going forward, I'm definitely interested in seeing how the success of this film impacts the industry if they learn any lessons. I suspect they won't, right? Disney's going to probably, just go, oh, okay, forget that. I'm just going to throw out more remakes. But if they do, I would think, like as I said, the biggest takeaway is to make your film something worth talking about. I think Chris Nolan has done that with the Odyssey. But I definitely do think that this movie could be a wake-up call, especially after hearing, the theaters, after years of naysayers saying, the theatrical experience is heading towards extinction. And then you have a movie like this that comes out and says, well, clearly that isn't the case, right? It doesn't have to be the case that we live in a Disney Plus or Netflix world. If you put the time and the effort into it and the audiences feel like you're just not wasting their time by putting out any old slop, and you actually kind of put the effort into, again, making your movie feel like it's worth going out to the theater for, people will do it. They're doing it for the Odyssey. But guys, what do you think? Do you think Hollywood's excuses about why audiences don't go to the theaters anymore is valid, or it's nonsense? Let me know in the comments. I really want to get your opinion on this, as well as the second week drop of the Odyssey. Are you surprised by it? I know I kind of am. I mean, this movie, heading towards $1 billion this quick, I wouldn't have guessed it. I thought it was going to be more around the Oppenheimer, maybe 800, 900 million, range, but apparently this is going to do a lot more than that. But yeah, let me know. And also give the video a like and subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content. But until then, I'm your host, T-Rex 3000, and I'm out. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this discussion, don't stop here. Check out our full review next, where we break down whether it really deserves all the hype.